Streaming is on.
Okay, I guess live streaming is on.
It is.
That's what it said.
All right, welcome everybody. It's April somehow. Time keeps on slipping into the future, and time is very much the topic of the meeting today. I will be presenting briefly, if I have my act together, on an NTP time server built on a Raspberry Pi and a GPS module. Something I've been toying with largely because of an interest I have to implement GPS-based time servers at work, which are considerably more expensive, but not remarkably more featureful than what I've concocted for just a handful of hours. But that's why my brain was going that direction. And when I realized that it would be a good topic for a meeting, I just decided to go ahead and buy the module and make it happen. So we'll go through that today, but and then we'll do our normal thing of going through everybody and seeing what they're up to. So let me go ahead and share my screen and make sure that that is functional before we go through. So I'm going to share my entire screen. Let me bring up the thing first. Okay. Let me know if you see this.
I do.
Okay, so I'm in presentation mode. I did create a slide deck just to help me more than anything. I also, Murphy's Law works most efficiently during presentations. So I know that, I couldn't necessarily expect all my components to be working when I did this. So I have pictures of things if the things don't work. But as of a few minutes ago, things were working. So we'll hope for the best. So yeah, it's a Raspberry Pi time server. Here are some images stolen from the internet. So enjoy them. So
Brett, could I interrupt Rusty here? Is there an image showing from the, is your screen showing as an image? I have no image using the Jitsi application on Android.
If you bring me into focus, does it have my screen?
I have no screen showing. Does anyone else see a screen?
I do, and I'm using the Jitsi app also.
Yeah,
I do, yes.
Well, okay, I'm turning on my video. I don't see why that would make a difference. Okay, I see a little blue circle in my screen that says live. If the meeting is currently being streamed to YouTube, so that the live, okay, so that's just information that to inform that this is being put on YouTube. But is anyone else using Android?
No.
No.
Yeah, I'm using the app on Linux.
So actually, hold on a second. Okay, there I am. So I know my video is working for me. Does anyone see me? Is my video going through to the server, to the Jitsi server?
Yes. We do see you.
Okay, well, let me turn me off now. But
do you see a video for me? Because my video should be the presentation.
Is there a button that I must press to see the presentation?
Shouldn't be.
Maybe if you switch to like active speaker, it may go back and forth if folks aren't muted.
I'm going to look for.
It should largely be me.
So Brett is BK. If I have BK turned on, and it says Brent Knotts, but I don't have the screen. I just have two initials, two letters.
Huh. I wonder if it's a bandwidth oriented thing. You're on mobile, right? And like a
Yeah, but
5G or something.
it's 4G signal, which is, you know, about 8 megabits to 20 megabits usually. So it shouldn't be that.
Well, worst case scenario, I can share the slide deck with you at the end, so you won't be
Well, I
completely
will
missing
just
out.
listen. I will just listen and keep searching for, maybe go ahead and I will just listen.
Okay. Well, apologies if this doesn't reach everyone, but we'll power through. Okay, so
Is there anybody else who can turn their video on? I see no video. Everything is initials. Just to be sure I'm getting video coming in.
Rusty, why don't you log out and log back in and see if that helps?
It sounds like a Windows maneuver. I'll try that. Okay, go ahead.
I'll give you a second to log out and log back in.
No, just go ahead and start, Brett.
Okay, well, I'll start slowly then. All right, again, a couple images stolen from the internet. We can't apparently have a conversation about NTP without talking about Siegel's Law. Siegel's Law is kind of a tongue-in-cheek notion, and it states a man with a watch knows what time it is. And I missed the period there, apologies. No proofreading apparently here. A man with two watches is never sure. That is rather meaningful in the NTP world because it's actually better to specify a single NTP source than two, because if there's two, there's no way of knowing which one is correct. So you're sort of asking for inconsistencies. Whereas if you have one, you're going to sync to that source. And you may not be accurate, but you will be consistent. If you have three, you will have some notion of who's right and who's wrong. So that's what it means in terms of NTP. In general, it's just the notion of when you have multiple sources of information, things can get rather confusing. On a network, why do we need accurate time? So once upon a time, it probably wasn't that important to
Uh-oh.
Look like we lost the presenter.
Yeah.
Says he's still there.
Yeah, I see him still there, but no lay presentation A.
You didn't finish your water.
It's not my water.
What?
This is Murphy's Law.
Moore's Law. I wonder if Brent thinks he's still up giving the presentation.
If we send him a text, one of those messages, maybe it'll pop up and alert him.
Somebody else like Rusty. Rusty can talk.
Yeah, he can.
I'm Rusty is here. I don't blame me for this.
Rusty, you're responsible for this.
It was working good for you.
It is. I'll mention one other strange thing. Every time I've come into Jitsi using the Jitsi application, I never seem to get the address right. Every time I go to, every time I've either used a month with WNCLUG or WNCLUG-Asheville, I've always thought it was an underscore. but every time I get it wrong and I end up in an empty room, and it's forever to figure out how to cancel out and try again. It's the strangest thing that it makes me wonder if Brett is stranded somehow with just a typo in a URL.
No, I doubt it. I mean, stop using the app, Rusty, because I had to stop using it. It started giving me so many problems. I just went to the browser.
Okay.
How do you turn off the app? Because when I click on the link, it automatically opens the app.
Have you uninstalled the app?
No, that's how you do it.
Yeah, I mean, I would do that. I mean, you should be able to just turn it off, but if you can't, uninstall it. It started causing so many problems, noise issues on the platform, all kinds of stuff. So I just got rid of it and went back to my Brave browser.
Okay.
Well, to help me, I'm going to go to Firefox, but can somebody tell me what is the URL? Is it WNCLUG_ or WNCLUG hyphen or
It's
just
underscore.
blank?
It's underscore. But if you click on the link do you have access, Rusty, to the Google Group platform?
Yes.
Yeah, just click on the link to the
that's
email.
how I clicked on the link.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I thought that I had put underscore in the URL manually. So I went back and clicked on the link, but I won't be using that link when I come back on Firefox. I'll need to type it into the.
No, you won't. Just access the Google Group on Firefox. Click on the link and you're done.
Yeah, but if I click on the link, like Pete was saying, if I click on the link, it'll throw me into the Jitsi app.
Yep.
Then you need to uninstall the app.
I wonder.
Okay.
I wonder if Brett lost his whole internet connection or something.
I think he thinks he's still presenting.
Yeah, for a while I think I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I was on the same slide, and until I went to go to the next slide, I did not realize my computer was completely locked up.
Okay.
So I have moved to a different computer to avoid that. So I'm going to have to go grab my presentation.
What kind of amateur hour OS are you using? Geez,
I know, right?
Wouldn't have happened if you're on Windows.
I have not diagnosed my problem, but I have had these lockups, and it never happens unless I'm using like certain things. Like I think it must be video oriented, because it happens more if I'm like watching YouTube or I don't know. I guess I haven't really fully diagnosed it, but it does if it just sits there where I'm doing just sort of more typical things that don't involve video, it just doesn't seem to lock up. But all right, I think I just, okay, maybe I didn't send it where I think I sent it. All right, either way, let me download that. What's the last thing y'all heard?
Had the original slide up. That's as far as I remember.
Yep.
3 watches.
3 watches, yeah.
3 watches. That's it.
Okay.
The reasons why people needed a NTP.
Okay. Someone was paying attention.
Yeah. The last thing was the Siegel's Law or whatever, and you need 1 NTP source.
And a link to get 75% off of your internet service through Brent.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think you were about to go into a NordVPN ad, so or maybe Raid Shadow Legends. Anyway,
That's it.
Okay. Let me share my screen again. I'm on a laptop now, so it's a little bit trickier here. Do you see my screen?
Roger.
Okay, so let me go to here. Gotta hit my function key. Okay. All right. So second slide. basically, Siegel's law. It's sort of tongue in cheek. Basically, if you have two sources of information, you don't know which one is correct. But the more sources of information you have, the better. Okay, why do we need accurate time? This is the slide where things froze up for me, and apparently it froze up pretty darn quickly because you didn't hear much of anything. Security protocols such as Kerberos often require time to work. If they detect a time discrepancy, they essentially say something's wrong and they deny you access. Certificates in a similar fashion are time-based. If you are outside the validity window, which can be either in the past or the future, or in some cases, just if there's a time discrepancy and you're in the future, it doesn't like that. So a certificate-based authentication will not function. Time-based authentication, like TOTP, multi-factor authentication, is becoming more and more of a thing. And one of those protocols is a time-based authentication where a code changes, say, every 30 seconds or 60 seconds. If you're outside that window, then your code will not be correct. And that obviously time has to be consistent for that to function. In my world, I'm concerned with event correlation. I want all my events in my security event manager to be stamped with the correct time for when they actually happen, because otherwise when I go to try to correlate events, I can't trust that events that claim to have happened at the same time truly have happened at the same time. And there are some various regulatory compliance issues where certain entities require that your time be consistent. There are many choices in the world of network time. There's a choice of protocol for one, but really for most cases, there's really one good choice. Precision time protocol, again, bad on me for the proofreading. You can see I just kind of slammed this thing together. Precision time protocol, it is an extremely precise protocol, really meant for local networks that require precision that you just can't get from NTP. This is not for most use cases that we encounter. I think there are certain types of clustering, supercomputing, where the time has to be uber correct. But by and large, this is just too much for most networks. And it's not what the internet uses. It's not out there. It's not what you can get internet time on generally. So precision time protocol has its place, but not on my network, not on my work network. Network time protocol is internet time and is appropriate for most networks. It does use UDP port 123. I'll have a slide on that shortly to actually see what one of those packets looks like. And again, it is what we think of for the most part when we talk about network time. And then we have SNTP, which is a subset of NTP, which is used by devices that have lower computing power or just generally aren't concerned with having the full implementation of NTP. And it's generally not as accurate, but it's accurate enough for an end device to get its time synced up to a network. NTP is really, really old. It's been in use since the early 1980s. It's one of the few protocols still in use today that is from that time. It is currently on version 4. NTP has a concept of these strata or layers, where stratum 0 is actually a clock, a source clock with time from what's considered to be an accurate source, and the various other strata are your distance from that clock source. So a Strata 1 is directly getting its time from that clock source. A Stratum 2 is getting its time from a Stratum 1. A Stratum 3 is getting its time from a Stratum 2, and so forth. You rarely see much beyond Stratum 3 or 4 just because you don't need to. I think in the original notion where server resources were far more limited, it made more sense to think of you might have as many as 16, which is the maximum strata, so 0 to 15. But in today's practical use with the computing and network resources, what they are, we just simply don't need that many layers. And obviously the greater distance from your Strata 1 servers, the more likelihood you're going to be slightly off on your time. But a Stratum 2 server isn't necessarily more accurate than a Stratum 3 server. It's just closer in, hops to a Stratum 0 clock source. And now NTP has various jobs it has to do. One thing it has to do is pick a server that has the best time. I tried to read about the various algorithms and how it does this. It's not simple. And it's been around for a while and it's been refined several times. So we'll just assume that there is a very refined algorithm to decide whose time is most consistent. And there are algorithms to discipline the local clock, to basically bring the local clock into alignment with that time without big jumps that can be disruptive to applications and crash them or whatever. This is a quick Wireshark of an NTP packet. At this point in time, I was not getting time from my Raspberry Pi. So as you can see, the server is something from the Ubuntu NTP pool. But you can see what the various bits of the packet, it's UDP port 123, as you would expect. There are various flags, including the version number, which is NTP4, which is the version that everything is using today. And you can see there are various timestamps. I won't go into exactly how it uses these timestamps. Obviously, within the packet themselves, these are just numerical, essentially Unix time. And Wireshark has been so kind as to interpret them as UTC time with a readable format. There are choices as far as which programs you can use in Linux for NTP. There's Crony as well as NTPD. Crony is getting to be more popular, and it does have some advantages, and it has some advantages that I like for my stuff both at home and at work. So NTPD expects that you're going to be consistently connected to your servers. And if your connection is more intermittent, it's going to cause issues as far as getting synced and staying synced. Whereas Crony is more tolerant to that and will and generally will synchronize your clock faster in those situations. Because of that, it's better for mobile systems and it's better for virtual systems. Virtual systems have local clocks that drift very, 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 very quickly compared to systems with a real quartz clock to compare to. So a virtual system will drift such that Crony is better suited to keeping time for those systems. Given that I have a nearly 100% virtualized situation at work, that is interesting for me, and it's obviously more suited to a home network where you probably have a mix of mobile and systems that are connected intermittently, or some may be permanent, but it's generally better for home environments as well. NTP, for its side, supports more types of network communication, which again are not particularly common, but do have their use, broadcast and multicast communication. There's also more choices as far as auto key support, which uses PKI infrastructure for authentication. Those are not available in Crony. So if that's something that's important, obviously NTP becomes a better choice. Within Ubuntu and other systemd systems, you have a choice of systemd timesync, which is client only, but is extraordinarily simple to set up and is generally set up by default on those systems. That's what I have running on my systems because, again, I don't need every system I have to be an NTP server. I just need to grab correct time on a regular basis, and that's what systemd timesync does. So we're talking about creating a Stratum 1 server with a Stratum 0 clock source. In this situation where that source is GPS. GPSs, the satellites themselves, have multiple atomic clocks, and that's how they work. If we don't, if they, the fact that we know how far away they are and where we are is based upon the differential in time between where we are, between the time we have and the time they have. And if we have 4 GPSs connected, we know where we are to a relatively close degree, and we know what time it is to a very accurate degree. And these GPS receivers can then report that time to our computer system. And one of the ways they can do that very accurately is by outputting a pulse per second, which is essentially on a wire. They output a signal, which is something that you can basically sync to either the leading edge or the falling edge to, and that is generally the leading edge is very consistent as far as being exactly on the start of a second. I may be misspeaking a little bit there, so don't take that quite right. I tried to get that right, but essentially this pulse per second is what sets the time very, very accurately. We're getting a time on the receiver, so we know what the second is. But as far as really nailing the start of the second, it's that PPS signal. So that's the magic that we need to get from this receiver. So that GPS source is our Stratum 0 clock source, and our NTP server is our Stratum 1 server on the Pi. So to make this happen, you need a Raspberry Pi 3 or 4. Mine's a 3B. You need OS. I use the 64-bit light image. Didn't need a GUI, so I didn't install a GUI. I usually start fresh on anything I do. I don't keep adding stuff on to the last thing I did, so it's a fresh image. Then you need a GPS module. I didn't post the link to the exact one I got. Read the reviews because they all generally suck to some extent. They're cobbled together from leftover parts, pulls from other things. They're not generally the best quality. So reading reviews is important, and you still may get a turd. You need jumper wires to put it together. I specifically did not want to have to solder anything, so I made sure I got something that had connectors that did not require soldering. And I would strongly suggest an antenna. I did not get one, and therefore I had to use like an antenna that is not well suited to GPS, and I had to stick it up in my laundry room with the antenna hanging out the window so I would get a decent signal. I don't plan to use this long term. I just wanted to use it to play with and to do this presentation. So I didn't want to spend any money or have any things laying around that I wasn't eventually going to use. So that's why. But if you want to really use this, definitely get a proper GPS patch antenna. So this is what it looks like. This is my actual device, my actual module. As you can see, you just connect up particular pins for power, for ground, transmit, receive, and the all important signal. Okay, getting a little background noise there. So it was very simple to put together. 5 wires, no issues there. Looks like one of my wires might be loose in the picture, but I did tighten that up. So to prepare the Pi, one thing that didn't work initially that I had to do some Googling on is I had to disable my serial console because my Pi was trying to output stuff on the wires that I was trying to input stuff on. So you need to disable that serial console using Raspberry config. Then you need to install some things, PPS tools, GPSD, GPSD clients, Python GPS, and Crony, which is the NTP server we're using for this. Could have used NTPD, but my understanding is you have to actually compile it because the NTPD for Pi does not have PPS support by default. So it was a lot easier to use Crony. And like I said, for my network, Crony is probably a better choice anyway. So I added to Etsy modules, PPS GPIO. I added to my boot config the lines shown here. And I set GPSD to use the devices in question, TTY-S0 and PPS0, and told it to start at boot. And I rebooted. So to verify GPS function, well, first of all, there is an LED on the board which will flash once a second, which is essentially showing that it does have that GPS fix and it is outputting that PPS signal. The PPS signal is, you can also test it by running this command and it will show you that output. So let me do that since we're here. I am not connected to my Pi because I had to move over. So let me do that now.
Brent, can you make that larger?
I will, yes. Okay, let me make it bigger and make the font bigger too if I can. Bear with me, it's zoom in. Let me just control plus. Okay, that should be better.
Perfect.
Y'all good with that? Okay, so let me find, I'm lazy. I don't like to type things. I know I've done this command in the past. Okay, okay, there we go. 0. All right, so that is what we are syncing to. That is the PPS output, and we're seeing a timestamp which with each ping, so to speak, each signal and it shows the Unix time in seconds for each signal. If you want details beyond that, I just simply don't know because I did not delve that deeply into how this works. And if we want to see the GPS, we can look at CGPS. That is not GPS. And this will show that we are currently using 7, maybe 8 at times, satellites. We could do better with a proper antenna. Like I said, this is up in my laundry room, hanging out the window to get a semi-decent signal. As you can see, this is where I live. If you want to send a missile my way, those would be where you land it.
All right.
So we have a functional GPS, which is great, but not really what we want. We want the time, which we are getting. Oh, and this is all the goodies actually coming from the radio signals. All right, so back to the slide. All right, so nope, go back. All right, so that's what we just looked at, the PPS output as well as the GPS output. So to set up Crony, we add these lines to crony.conf to basically specify a reference clock. There can be reasons to tweak this delay field. I won't get into that, but it essentially has to do with it. It needs to be within this amount of delay from I don't want to misspeak, but that may need to be tweaked based upon your circumstances. So I set a internet pool as a backup, which I did change from the default based upon my personal experience that uspool.ntp.org will work pretty well. And then I allowed my local network, which is 225.0 /24 to allow to sync to the server. By default, I don't think it allows anything other than localhost. Then I restarted CronyD. All right, and then I can verify CronyD through a couple commands: CronyD source stats, CronyD sources, which here it will show you that it is using PPS as its source. So since we do have this functional now, I can do here. I'll be lazy. Yeah, it's you got to be.
Okay, well, I had no idea that it was a communal that live. Of course, I still cannot see the presentation, even though I have the ability to stop the presentation.
Yeah, please don't do that again, Rusty.
Yeah, I won't do that again. If someone can help me, I'm trying to get a pure exit out of Jitsi Android so that I can go to test browser mode. I've already failed with Firefox, which didn't work well, and I was going to try Google Chrome next. Can someone tell me how do I stop the application? I have a triple menu button that offers more options, but none of those options is an exit option. I've had this problem on other meetings where I cannot, I'll have to kill the application in the Android menu, in the system control. If does anyone know where your exit button is for the Jitsi application?
On mine, it's on the lower right, and it's a red button, and it says exit or something.
Oh, okay. It's the okay.
It
I
looks
have
like
a
a
red
phone.
phone button. I'm going to try it. If so, I will. Okay, go. I'm sorry for the interruption, and I'm going to try.
He's gone.
Hi, Rusty. Please don't hit my live stream again.
Well, we'll just hit a few commands here. That's not the proper command. Let me go back to my presentation and find out what it is. Source stats and sources. That's what I want. So source stats. Don't ask me for a tremendous amount of information about what all these are. Obviously, there's sources that come from the NTP pool, including gopher.fart.website, which is just awesome. And that's what happens when you use public pools. And we see PPS and NMEA. These are from the GPS. PPS is what we're synced to. That's why there's an asterisk here. As you can see, whereas milliseconds are used to show the precision of the other sources, nanoseconds are used to show the precision of the PPS source. And we do expect that we are generally going to be in the realm of microseconds as far as our synchronization to real proper official time. So let's see, that's that. So then you want to configure your remote system. I used timesyncd.conf. I could have shown you using proper NTP to do this, but that's just simply not what I use on my home system. And again, because this is good enough. So what I did is specify an NTP server. There's also a fallback NTP server, which was set as ntp.ubuntu.com, which is fine. I just left that set as that. And then I restarted systemd timesyncd.service. And then if I want to see the status, I can run time date control timesync status. I'm not going to bother going there because it will show you very much this, which is I'm synced to a Stratum 1 clock. The server is my Raspberry Pi, which it's this IP address. I'm getting relatively accurate time, but again, it's not going to sync the time as aggressively and as accurately as proper NTP or Crony would. Okay. That is my last slide. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, so that's good. So that's essentially it. Did anyone have any questions?
I have a question. You mentioned that the difference basically between Stratum 2 and Stratum 3 and Stratum 4, et cetera, really didn't have any relevance other than distance. But don't you have to, and that one is not really any more accurate than the other necessarily, but don't you have to be concerned when distance is involved with potential latency issues?
Well, latency isn't necessarily a bad thing for NTP. Jitter is worse. So if your latency is ever changing, that's more of a situation because the latency is built into the protocol. It's essentially consistently measuring the latency, and it's not concerned so much with your latency as much as your consistency with your latency. So if that's always changing, the timestamps are going to be more variable in their difference because there's a timestamp of where you are and where they are, and those were the timestamps I showed you in the packet. And as long as you can have like we'll just say a T1 line, right? With that has a very long run, and maybe it has 100 milliseconds of latency on it. But as long as it's always 100 milliseconds of latency, that's going to be very happy for NTP because it likes consistency. If you're going over the internet from, say, Pakistan to here, and you're following a different path each time, your latency is going to be very inconsistent, and that's going to be considerably less happy for NTP. So it would not choose that server based upon the changing latency and the inconsistency and the timestamps.
Okay, so it monitors the latency, and does it calculate the offset based on that?
Right. Yeah, it's going to know that, it says it's, this particular internet time there, 10456778, the Unix time in those numbers, which you saw those numbers with precision after a decimal point. So it's going to have a certain number of picoseconds, which again, it's not going to be that accurate, but it can get to a certain number of picoseconds of accuracy in the protocol.
Right.
And it's going to see that difference between when the packet was sent, when the packet was received, and so forth. And those are factored in. Again, I tried to understand exactly how that all got put together, but I just simply did not sink the time in to grasp it fully. But smart people built an algorithm to make that all work. Yes.
Yep. Thank you.
So, Brett,
you may have covered this, but how do you get the GPS module to interface with your time sync on your Linux computer?
Well, there's a couple factors to that. So let me back up. It's essentially a serial device, right? With the GPIO module. So I'm using the serial transmit and receive, but I'm also using a PPS, which comes through as a PPS device in Linux. Again, this is really the magic. This is where the extreme accuracy comes from, is this PPS signal, and that becomes dev PPS 0. And I have that. I can test that. I can look at the output of that PPS 0 and see that I'm getting a pulse once a second on that line, and that's what Crony uses to sync to. So this is the serial device and the PPS device that I can then tell Crony to use. So let's look at Etsy crony.conf. So at the bottom, I hope, yes, I've added some lines, and basically I'm telling it to use PPS 0 as a time source. I don't fully understand all the things on this line, but essentially this is referring to the GPS device, because a PPS doesn't tell you what time it is. It just tells you when the second starts. The GPS tells you what the time is, which second it is. This is tell you when the second starts. This tells you which second it is, if you understand me. Absolute standpoint.
Hey, Brett,
Yes.
many years ago, it might have even been preceding the internet, you could build a GPS receiver using a Pringles can. It was pretty easy to do. You might be able to find information online.
Yeah, that might have fixed my antenna issues.
Right. That might be fun if you can still buy Pringles.
The cans are all wrong now. Any other questions?
Yeah, let me ask another question. It's not directly related to the time server, but the GPS module, is there a way to report your GPS location coordinates to a remote server? In other words, if this Raspberry Pi, if I'm mobile with it, is there any way to figure out the location of that Raspberry Pi with the GPS module?
Well, yes. I mean, I don't know exactly the best way to implement that, but there are. I installed a couple different GPS tools. One is this CGPS. I'm sure you can make it do all manner of things as far as outputting, including probably accessing it remotely in some way. Again, I don't know what that might be, but as you can see, it has my location, which is pretty darn accurate. So that theoretically could be like, so if I pasted this into Google Maps, it will show me my house.
Right.
It's absolutely correct. So, and as you can see, that time should also be equally correct. Let me bring up, well, I don't have a clock with seconds there, but yeah, so this is useful as a GPS for sure. And I mean, that's what these little modules are for. Generally, people will add them to like drones and so forth because they're very small and light. This is not the smallest or lightest among them because, again, that wasn't my goal. My goal was to not solder. And, I was pleased to find that it did function without too many hitches. Like I said, I could get more satellites probably with a proper patch antenna. I could probably get enough satellites even down here in the basement with a proper patch antenna, but I have no plans to use this long term. I'm perfectly fine with internet time. I do actually have plans to implement NTP servers, GPS-based NTP servers, Stratum, 1 servers in my work network. But sadly, I won't be using Raspberry Pis because generally people frown on those little homebrew solutions in corporate networks. So we'll have to spend real money on them. Anything else?
Great
That was an
presentation.
interesting presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, very interesting.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you. When I did mine, I went with the Adafruit GPS hat. Now, I'm okay with soldering. I actually just picked up it's somewhere around here, a Pine 64 Pinesul soldering iron. Oh yeah, one of these. I like it quite a lot. It's USB-C powered, but it did require a little bit of soldering, unlike yours. But
Yeah,
mine's.
I know my soldering skills are not there, so.
Oh, I didn't say I was good at it. I just said I could do it.
Did
So
we
we did-
lose some folks? I don't see a lot of people on.
I see a lot.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, maybe it's just my view here. Let me stop sharing my screen.
Here you go.
Brent, when you returned, what is your handle, your initials? I'm back to you. I don't see a BK anymore.
I think it's just saying me because, again, I connected on a different computer I haven't used before, and I was very
Okay.
hasty about doing so. So I did not set any. I didn't do anything other than connect as quickly as I could.
It
Well-
says fellow Jitser.
Right.
Okay, fellow Jitser, let me say that I went out. I left the meeting in the Jitsi Android version. Pete showed me the way out by the red button that looks like a telephone. It didn't occur to me that the telephone represents the exit button. But anyway, I went to, it was a total failure to come in on Firefox. The interface was not usable, but there was an anatomy to what you might say, the graphical menus were intelligible in the rendered by Google Chrome, but everything was communal. I went to more options and it was offering me total hegemony. There was, under more options, there was not only a button for stopping streaming, but also to be able to disable all microphones and all video of all participants.
Yeah, I use the mute everyone else button a lot because someone will be speaking, there'll be background noise. So say Alan is speaking and I can hear some rustling. Otherwise, I'll just mute everyone except for Alan, and things will clear up very nicely. I mean, as long as everyone everyone behaves themselves, it's actually a very good system. But again, it's very socialist.
I didn't realize that. Yeah.
All right. Well, if there are no more questions, we can go around the room. I guess I will start for a change since I'm already talking. I have been very busy at work. One thing I did in the Linux world, which is not so much a Linux thing, but we have a goal at work to implement something called privileged access management, or PAM. It is a buzzword that's out there in the computer security world, and to that end, we are trying to control administrative access as much as possible. So one thing I did as sort of low-hanging fruit, because I control all these things, is for all my Linux servers, I created private keys in the privileged access management system. And created launcher-based access, so I can log into my PAM solution and then just click a button to log into any of my Linux servers. Down the line, that will be the only way that folks have access to these Linux servers. So it centralizes the access, and it allows this system to change those keys, say every 30 days. So I don't have to know what those keys are. No one has to know what those keys are. This system saves those keys and controls those keys and moderates the access for us. Similarly, it does control of access on Windows systems as well, with Windows accounts and so forth, but this is how it interfaces with the Linux world. Beyond that, I've just been extremely busy with multi-factor authentication and other aspects of this PAM, and have not had much time to explore my hobby beyond, of course, creating this for y'all, which was very fun. And really, it came together in like a 1-hour session, so it was not a lot of work. It actually took longer to put the presentation together. So moving on, Alan.
Well, I've been just finishing up my solar-powered Wi-Fi and camera system, which is working very well. Learned a lot about solar panels and storage batteries. Based on that endeavor, I decided to try to learn KiCad, which is for generating printed circuit board schematics. And it's absolutely incredible. KiCad, I believe, was developed by people at CERN, which is a pretty high-level agency or organization. So that's what I've been doing, learning KiCad. If anybody knows a good source of printed circuit board fabricators, I'd love to hear. There's the one that keeps coming up is PCBWay.com, and their prices are pretty good, but the shipping costs are outrageous. So I was hoping Ed would be on today and could give me some pointers.
Yeah. He's the guy that would know.
That's all I've been up to.
All right, thanks, Alan. Dan, what you got going on?
Let me come back up. Okay, everybody see me?
Yes.
I don't have a lot going on. You mentioned, well, first of all, Brent, thanks for the presentation. It's great. Thank you. Learned a lot. I launched a new website, self-hosted on my Raspberry Pi Model 3B Plus. So I've got 2 sites running now simultaneously. What I'm doing is I'm hosting 2 sites on the same WordPress install using 2 databases. So they each have their own SQL database running on one Raspberry Pi Model 3B Plus. The second website is a WordPress website with my own domain called dancalloway.com. And of course, my first one is a datapioneernetwork.org. So they're both running, and I'll put links out on Google Groups sometimes so you guys can see it if I haven't already done it. So I've been doing that. And then the second thing I've been doing is I've been using, I don't know what the rest of you guys use, but I've been depending solely on, for my encrypted email, Proton Mail. I've had a Proton Mail account now for as long as I can remember. I think when they first started in like 2004. But I use Proton Mail, and I have a professional account set up there. Of course, those folks are hosted out of, or they originate from Switzerland, and their server farm is actually a kilometer deep in a bunker, so that it can't be touched by anything other than a nuclear bomb. So that's what I thought was pretty good. But I use Proton VPN also, and I have an account there. I can access up to 400 servers in 60 different countries worldwide using my Proton VPN account. But I've looked at another, you guys may be interested in this. I've looked at a rival of Proton Mail recently called Tutanota. Tutanota, actually, Tutonota, which is based out of Germany. And it's a German-based equivalent to Proton Mail system, end-to-end encrypted calendar, encrypted mailbox. And what the encrypted mailbox means is that they can't even read your mail. But unlike Proton Mail, they're not Swiss-based, so the laws regarding access to your mail from Germany might be easier. But I'm going to be giving that a look-see and just check it out. I've got a free account set up right now, and I'm going to be looking into them. The only other thing I've been doing, Brent mentioned multi-factor authentication. And when I did my presentation about a month ago, I think it was, on RoboForm, you guys saw that my security in RoboForm wasn't all that great. It was down to like 47%. So I just want to let you know I've implemented two-factor authentication on a lot of my accounts, and I've beefed up the security on my other accounts by changing my passwords to very strong passwords and eliminating those I didn't need. So I've got my wellness check, if you will, for security through Proton Mail up to, I believe it's 92% now. So I'm a lot better off than I was a month ago. And other than that, that's about all I got going.
All right, thanks, Dan. Pete?
Okay. Hi, everybody. I have arrived back from Florida roughly a week ago, and I'm freezing my butt up here. We were down to 24, I think, 3 or 4 days ago at night. Anyway, I am using my iPhone because my Linux laptop is not cooperating with me since I did an update on Mint 22, I think it was. So I have to, that's on my list to get that going again. And I have a couple of things I've run across that people may be interested in. Number one, I have a cell tower a couple of 100 feet behind my house on top of the mountain up here. And I guess it was a few weeks ago, or last time I was up here, probably a month ago, I'm not sure. I heard all this banging and rattling and going on. So I walked over there, and there was a crew installing some new antennas on the tower. And in talking to them, they were doing work for an outfit called Dish Wireless, which is a new endeavor that Dish is going to be coming out with. And Dish is getting together with AWS, Amazon, whatever service, to provide information over wireless. And it could be streaming videos, it could be internet access, I'm not sure. They're setting up a trial installation in Western North Carolina. I think he said they were going to be doing a demo for invited companies this month. Might have been last month, but they expect it to go into operation in 2023. And if you Google Dish Wireless, there's all this information. I could hardly understand it, how it ties in with the Amazon Web Service and what they're using the Amazon Web Service to do. And it smacks a lot of artificial intelligence, and it was just really mesmerizing. So you may want to check that out. And then the second thing, I don't know, just for everybody's information, probably a lot of you know, we have an outstanding museum at AB Tech. It's called the Asheville Radio Museum. It's free. It's open on Saturdays from 2 to 3 p.m. on the campus. It's on the 3rd floor of the Elm building, ELM. It's all run by volunteers, and they have all this radio equipment. They've got the old broadcast radios from the 20s and 30s and 40s. A lot of amateur radio equipment. Really a interesting place to go, interesting museum, and it's right in our backyard, and it's free. And when I was there were 2 other people there. So it's not like you got to wait in line to get in there. So that's it. That's all I got.
Well, thanks, Pete, and welcome back to North Carolina.
Thank you, Burr.
Kevin, what you got going on?
Let's see. So absolutely nothing tech related. Fiance's coming over in a week. She'll be here a week today. Massively excited because transatlantic relationships are a pain. So I'm looking forward to that. Actually, that's the only thing I've thought about for the last month. I'll be honest. That's been my goal for the last month. I've been useless at work. Feel kind of bad taking a paycheck.
You can always be the superstar, Kevin.
Do what, Brent?
You can't always be the superstar at work. You got to let others shine some months.
That's for certain, and I have certainly been lackluster the last month or so. Yeah, so we're excited. She's coming over. She'll be here for 2 weeks. So we're gonna do the little tour Western North Carolina again. I'm gonna get to show around the area this time in spring, because when she was here in December, I mean, yeah, it was very spring-like when she was here, but now it's like proper spring, with out the snow, probably.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So the one thing I actually do have going on, other than that, I'm gonna start a Gallic learners group for like Northwest North Carolina, Western North Carolina, just sort of in general, because the Scottish shop that used to be over at Grandfather Mountain, another one has opened up. So there's one in West Jefferson that's sort of Scottishy, Irishy. So I've been chatting with them, and I'm going to go down and chat with the folks in Linville, because we do have some learners in the area. Like I know of at least one person out towards Morganton and another one out towards Black Mountain. So yeah, I'm going to see if we can get a little bit of a learners group together, and just going to have some fun with it.
Comment, Kevin. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I don't know how I stumbled on this, but on YouTube, there is a video. It's called The Cup Song, but it's in Gaelic by a bunch of school kids over in Ireland. So it's pretty cool.
I forget who the group is. They do. It may be the same folks. They also take current pop songs.
Okay.
And so every summer they have this music program that runs for several weeks, and they do whatever songs are popular at the time.
Okay.
One of my favorite recordings of Africa by Toto. One of my favorite recordings of Africa is in Irish. One of my favorite recordings is "Shake It Off" by Taylor Swift is oddly in Irish.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You don't know the name of the group, huh?
I can find it real quick. I mean, there aren't many people that are doing "Shake It Off" in Irish.
Gotcha.
No, I wouldn't think so. Not even Ariana Grande.
Oh, apparently there are a lot more people doing it than I remember. T.G. Lurgan is the sort of overarching program.
Okay.
I'll drop that in the chat. PG. So it's an effort to help like the new generation learn Irish, and they're doing it with music.
Cool.
So, if you have the link to what you saw though, I would love to watch it.
Okay, I'm gonna have to hunt that down.
No rush. Send it to me whenever.
Okay.
I would massively appreciate that. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. Larry, how's it going?
Well, the kids just got home, so they're anxious to see me, and I'm anxious to see them. Just like a long distance relationship. So I don't really have anything new to say about Linux. My MX Linux and Linux Mint are working great. I've been hooking them up to some like 50-inch and 60-inch TVs, which is good for me since I don't have my reading glasses now. But I seem to this has been working well here, and this is one of the few times it seems like recently when I haven't dropped this connection from this meeting, which I'm using Vivaldi. So I'm not sure why it's working so well this time, but it sure is nice to see other people have troubles just besides me. So that's it for me right now, because I got to go play with the kids.
Well, go and enjoy. I do think, you know, you need to show them the fester thing, you know, with the light bulb out of the mouth.
They want to watch alligators.
Oh, it is plugged in, so I thought it was battery operated. So no,
It is battery operated.
No fester thing with that.
It's battery operated.
Leander?
Surprisingly, not a lot going on the last month. Just lots of. I'm in the final throes of my Japanese studies here for this semester. Anyway, I've got. If I do 3 more hours, I can tack a minor onto my degree that I got from ASU previously. I have to go do some song or dance for the registrar's office, but unlike Kevin, I have eschewed my Scotch Irish heritage. You can keep the itchy skirts and the sheep guts, and I'm learning Japanese instead. But it's a that's been what I've been really focusing on. I have not a lot else going on. I've been getting been trying to get out and do some photography stuff more, and things of that nature. But I've just been trying to fight the old. I don't know if anyone else has experienced this the last little bit here, but I think this is everything with the situation and the world drags on. The anhedonia with like trying to get interested in doing things again has become a real struggle, and work kind of we keep going back and forth. Are we remote? Are we in office? Are we whatever? It's just this whole constant schedule change with that stuff. So I'm trying to get out and do some more stuff out external to work and things like that. So hopefully this will clear up. I can make it to Japan soon. I've got some friends over there, and maybe I can convince ASU I can do my job from there, because I think after 2 years of living in the woods, I think I'm kind of done with isolated country living to some degree. So anyway, that's it for me.
All right, thank you. Rusty?
Yeah. Well, I've got 2 topics that I'd like both that I'd like some help on. Just generally, I'm mired down in physical projects that are related to right now trim finishing of an edition. It's the slowest construction I have ever done in my whole life, but that's okay. That's the way I want to go at it. But I'm noticing on one of my 3 laptops, I've got an old Mint on a HP machine that has a good screen. I have to maintain a Windows machine just for CAD software and for TurboTax, and I don't even have Linux on that. That has a good screen, but I've got a Dell laptop that I began to realize that the resolution on the screen is inadequate. It seems to me that there's sort of a fuzziness that if you had an old-fashioned CRT, you would be looking for the control for the, the little focus dial, the focus adjustment, or it's almost like the screen is out of focus, but I don't understand that kind of concept in a flat screen, pixelated, where there's no X-ray gun and no focal point. But that's what the screen reminds me of. And so in Kubuntu, which I have installed on this, there are no controls that relate to contrast. There's the 3 color and gamma controls that make no difference. And it's just, I really don't know if there is any tool for modifying screens a priori, that is a tool that's beyond what is offered in the settings menus for a distribution like Kubuntu. So I'm just asking, does anyone know of any separate sort of hardware modifier that you can operate above and beyond the settings tools that are in your distribution that might improve the screen? Let me say that, for instance, I have toyed with changing the overall font size in settings for individual applications like like my browser. But the interesting thing is there's no way to set, it's not that I need larger letters, it's that the letters that I have do not have good contrast with the background. And so it's almost like if I could go in the browser settings and set everything to bold, I'd be happy with small, bold would just give me more dark lettering contrasted with white background. So it's not a font size problem. To me, it's a focus problem and it's a contrast problem. And there's no control for those two things. You cannot set bold across an application at least not in Firefox. And you cannot set, and there is no contrast control in the display settings. So any suggestions there?
The only time I've experienced an LCD to look like it's out of focus is when the resolution, setting is not at the optimal setting for the device. Like it's meant to run at 1920 by 1080, and you're trying to run it at something slightly different, and it's trying to cope with that. That's generally what I've experienced. But in this day and age, most devices are really good about, telling your computer what it wants to run at, and it will usually do that. So I don't know if that's the case or not, but that is something I would look at to make sure that it is running at what the monitor wants to run at. But that's the only time that I've experienced an LCD to look like it's out of focus.
Yeah, I have tried that, and I keep returning to that whatever it is, 1920 by whatever, and I agree with you. It doesn't seem to get better by choosing a lower resolution, and the upper the upper resolution seems to be limited by, you get other weird behavior if you try to go upward. Okay, well that's item number one. Just if anyone has afterthoughts, I may post this problem to the group mail list. Here's my number two that I wanted to ask about. Now, I still am waiting for Dan to respond sometime to more information about Obsidian. I have an interest, like everybody. I hope for the magical, wonderful PIM, personal information manager. I really would like some kind of outliner, and like what I used to use, which was the free TreePad software, which no longer has a developer. It's proprietary. And so I'm looking for that kind of tool. I don't know if it would be Obsidian, but I would like to basically have an outliner with a tree table of contents that's tree manageable. And I would like to have some of the features of a bookmarker that will grab selected links from a browser. And I just don't know if Obsidian is the thing. I'd like to hear more from Dan about the details of how Obsidian is deployed and whether it can do harvesting from a browser, or whether you just have to do copy and paste from the URL field.
Okay, Rusty, I don't want to take a lot of time doing that. I don't know if I promised you information on Obsidian before, but I will give you something in the group platform in detail that goes into the use of Obsidian. Do you know Markdown language?
No, I can't say that I do.
Okay, Obsidian uses Markdown, so you would need to, and it's not difficult at all to learn Markdown. It's very, very easy to learn.
I understand the concept, and so I could go to that mentality, but part of well, let me just give one little example here. I have used Zotero, which is basically a footnoting tool.
Yeah, I've used it.
And the thing about Zotero is that it has what's called a connector, which for each operating system, and I guess you might say for different browsers, there is a connector that allows Zotero to harvest selected things that are parsed out of the text metadata of a given web page. And I may try to go back to Zotero as a kind of combination bookmarking tool and note-taking tool, but it's not ideal as note-taking. I cannot recall if it does internal hyperlinks.
Yeah, and Obsidian does all of that, so it's probably exactly what you're looking for. So I'll give you that information. There's another application under development right now. It's in beta. It's called Flotelic, that does something similar to what Obsidian does.
Can you spell that?
Flotelic is FLOWTELIC.
Okay.
If you go to apps.flotelic.com, you'll actually pull up the beta version of the platform. But Obsidian is easy to use, and it's very robust, and it sounds like it's exactly what you want. So I will generate a lot of information, put it out there on the Google Group platform.
Okay.
For you to
Can I
grab.
ask one other? This is one other sort of foundation question about the format for a PIM, and that is whether the data is kept in just simply a readable file like an XML file, or is it kept in a back-end little tiny database, like a non-SQL database? Now,
In
Zotero
Obsidian?
uses a non-SQL database, which you have to maintain control over, whereas some of the others, so I didn't know, what does Obsidian use for actually storing?
Okay, I can answer that real quick. Obsidian uses something called vaults, VAULTS.
Say that again?
Vaults, VAULTS, like a bank vault.
Oh,
Okay, and it's not a database. What it is basically links out to your local storage in folders. And you can create vaults using a present existing folder, or you can create your own vaults. And everything is stored out locally on your computer. But Obsidian does have the ability to sync with mobile devices. So you can use an iPhone or iPad or an Android phone or whatever to access your data remotely over a mobile device. That's a paid feature of Obsidian, but it does have that ability built into it. Obsidian is extremely complex in its structure, but it's very easy to use. So I'll put all that information out there for you.
okay. So when you save a collection of your personal information in Obsidian, you must save a whole folder, apparently.
It gets saved in what's called a vault, which translates to a folder.
Okay. And so
Yeah.
that's going to have multiple files within the folder,
Right.
or even subfolders. It will even have subfolders within the
Yeah, and
folder?
Obsidian generates all that in the background for you. You don't have to create those yourself.
Okay, well, that's all for me. Thanks, Dan.
Sure.
And if anyone else stumbles on some epiphany of PIM tools, post it or contact me. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Rusty. I don't believe Arnold has acquired a headset yet, so I don't believe we'll be hearing from him other than in the chat. So, yeah, he says nothing new here. Did I miss anybody? All right. One thing before I forget, I think it's very likely I'm not going to be here for the June meeting. A friend of the family has a wedding the same day, so I'll very likely be there out of town. But I'll know more as that day approaches. So is there anything else folks would like to chat about today, or do we want to call this one early?
I don't think I have anything really more. It seems like there's something else I wanted to say to somebody else, but I can't remember it right now. So my brain is done.
I think I'm done too.
Yeah, I'm out today.
Yeah.
Got the kids here.
We noticed.
Paw Patrol
So-
umbrella.
I'm going to
I
say
am-
one more thing before I go. Since my machine did lock up, I'm running a memory test on it, a mem test 86. So far, so good there. I don't know if anyone else has any ideas of how to diagnose sort of spontaneous lockups where the screen just freezes with what it has on it,
Got another book.
doesn't do anything.
Yeah. It could be bad VRAM. I've got an XPS here that does that sometimes. It just dies. I don't know on Fedora, and some of these things, like I've talked to my friend, like contacts at Dell about it, and some of these newer chipsets and stuff are really designed to be window, like they don't, like there's something in the Windows driver that handles sleep modes. In fact, if you've got anything newer than the 10th generation Intel stuff, there's a new enhanced power saving mode that's just not accessible at all to Linux. They've killed S3 sleep modes. And it's just he's like, yeah, you're lucky Linux installs on that thing. Like, so I just kind of take it as it is at this point. So that's an XPS 15. My newer 13 works great, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, this is an XPS that's in front of me, and I mean they sold this with Ubuntu as an option. That's not how I got it, but I've installed Mint since. But yeah, it is flawless with
Yeah.
Linux. Everything works out of the box. I don't have to do anything special at all with it. It just runs.
Yeah.
And I generally have not had issues with my little mini computer that I cobbled together until recently. And again, it's only apparently in certain circumstances it just likes to lock up.
I do think that, yeah, I mean, I've got my 13. My XPS 13 is flawless in Linux, like you say. It's the 15 that's got an issue, the older 15. But it's, I do think we are heading into a period of, Kevin, close your ears, but in the name of security, we're going to be going to more and more lockdown hardware and vendor specific stuff and things like that. So I think that especially as ARM becomes more attractive, and ARM is just like, people point at the ARM architecture and they say, well, Linux runs on ARM, and they point at like things with the Raspberry Pi, but I'm like, yeah, but the Raspberry Pi has a lot of highly specific things in it and a lot of stuff. There's a lot of different power management schemes in ARMs and boot schemes in ARM and stuff like that. Like saying it runs on ARM is like not very specific. There's just so many flavors of it. So I kind of wonder if we aren't in the peak of like actual usable Linux desktop age here, and it's all kind of downhill once more between security and 5th generation warfare stuff going on, and people wanting more and more lockdown devices and transition to less standard ISAs and stuff. If we're kind of, I don't know, I'm getting off in the rhubarb here, but yeah, I was picking on you earlier about the Windows thing. So I ran a Windows 11 box for a while. I can't really talk about it, but I do some stuff, and I ran a Windows 11 box and discovered that if you sign into any Microsoft account on the box whatsoever, like I created a local account and then I signed into a Microsoft account in like another app or something like that, it picks it up, it locks that machine to your Microsoft account, and you cannot disassociate with it outside of just formatting the machine. And that was a pro machine. That was not a home machine. I was like, how is this associated with this Microsoft account? So, like if you sign into your work account, it picks that up and assigns it to your local account, and you cannot disassociate it. And I was like, well, I'm not using this for anything, and quit. So just a heads up if you've got a Windows 11 box.
Rusty here, a question. Isn't that the mentality of the iPad world and the whole mentality of Apple also, that you acquire an identity that's associated with you and a piece of hardware, and it's seamless and unchangeable?
Yep, that's it. Microsoft has this new identity thing. It's part of their new thing where they want to do away with the password, and they want to be able to use a series of biometric identification and pattern behavioral identification to sign you in, which I'm sure is enhanced security, but it really skews me out. Microsoft has this pattern of your behavior and can look at the cookies in your web browser and all this stuff and decide if it really is you or not. And I'm sure Apple's probably not looking so similar. Yeah. Windows Hello is part of that. Yeah, there's Iris, there's Howdy. I've seen Howdy on Ubuntu. It's probably is more secure. My goal on that is if people need to get past my TPM and Lux and passcode stuff, that's probably going to take state sponsored stuff at some point. So my goal is just not to become the target of a state sponsored hacker. Seems easy enough. But yeah, I'm sure that there are very good enhanced security reasons to be doing this kind of stuff. But as someone who you know, like a lot of my applications that I use don't run on Mac, don't run on Linux. I'm kind of not interested in or run on Windows. I mean, I'm kind of not interested in switching over to them, but I don't know where the future lies. I am kind of worried about it. I'm worried that we're being sold security and we're going to get digital serfdom. You know, like what's to stop them from the new Pluton chip apparently has some DRM functionality in it that's not disclosed quite yet, and can say, applications can say, oh, you're not licensed for this software, and kick it off. Or, and I'm sure the RIA, MPAA are like, oh, those FLAC files, those aren't tied to a streaming service. We can't let you play those coming down the pipe. As someone who still buys CDs, that's a little worrying. So I think we're going very closely to the good old "you'll own nothing and be happy" kind of model on a lot of stuff, sadly. So I'm going to be the stick in the mud and try to fight it as long as I can. But I think at the end of the day, when this much money is behind it, you're not going to win. So sorry, I'm ranting. Anyway, I see Brett looking at his watch. So
Yeah, just a reminder, everybody, if you want to go back and review the videos for today, there's going to be 2 of them now because somebody stopped the live stream, so I had to restart it.
Wasn't me. I did.
Yeah, I know. But there's 2 videos now instead of 1.
I apologize. I didn't mean to be rude, but my wife was texting me, and that's why I looked at my watch. I take all the time you'd like.
No, it's okay. I can get too talky sometimes. I get into the weeds on this stuff because it bothers me. But.
So I am curious what we did differently with my Surface, because I'll use it, and then like Katie will log in with her Microsoft account, and she's good with it there. And so I'm curious what we did differently, because it's like very different experiences for the 2 of us.
Really? So you signed into 2 Microsoft accounts? Is it a Windows 11?
Yep. Yeah, I
interesting.
did the upgrade before she got over here.
This was a native Windows 11 machine.